flags. We're going to please stand and we'll say our pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's a good program. Lenny Van Buren is going to speak to us about early filling stations in the town of Duanesburg. I'm sure you all know what filling stations are. Little kids here tonight. Gas stations might be a modern term. Anyway, we're going to turn the program over to Lenny. Come.
If you have trouble hearing me, give a holler. Addie has fixed me up with a mic machine.
Turn it on. Is it turn it on? It's on.
It's on.
Okay.
Is it working?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay. Tonight, the American motorists have been able to pump their own gas at filling stations since 1905. But those were little more than a pump at the curbside. Before that, motorists bought gasoline in cans from pharmacies and blacksmith shops and filled them up themselves. Tonight we'll take a tour of filling stations, gas stations of the past in the town of Duanesburg, starting in Rhineville and ending on Duanesburg Road, 3 miles west of Quaker Street. Please stop me anytime if you have anything to add to our program or if you have found an error. If you do have pictures at home, if this reminds you of any pictures you have at home or any memories, if you don't want to speak up during the meeting, speak to me afterwards or Pat, but we try to collect all we can, while we can, because things are getting scarce. From my father's notes, the first car in Rhineville was a 1914 Buick owned by Marcus Smith. The second car was a Hupmobile owned by Uncle Charles Fryer. My grandfather, Lester, his first car was a 1904 Ford touring car purchased in 1916, and his license plate and registration over there on the table. Do you know what color his first Ford was in 1914? Yes,
Black.
Black? How did you guess?
And one color there was.
So if people wonder why do you drive Fords, well, Grandpa started it all off for me. So anyway, we're going to start at Peak Store. That's always been the hub of Quaker Street. And for me, I have roots in Rhineville. There's an awful lot of history in Rhineville. I know they're over the hill, but I tell you could write books and books about Rhineville. So that's the front of Peak Store. Probably I'd say in the teens. There's Peaks again in 1924, with the gas station with the gas pumps out in front, and that little island divided the road. That's Raymond Boone's grave memorial marker that went from there to the Presbyterian Church when the road was widened, and now that sits in Rhineville Cemetery. So that's 1926. We don't know who this fellow is. He was a fisherman. And you notice the brands of gas changed through the years. Way back, Saucony was the big gas. Everybody gets Saucony. But then they started changing. Well, I think that's Mobil gas, looks to me. Got the wings. Yeah. And there's Mobil gas. And there's Lion. And there's Punky McCone. I hope hopefully she'd be here tonight because she gave me a bunch of pictures for this occasion. That's Punky, and the little girl in front is Penny McCone, Horace and Doris McCone's daughter. And there's Lion and his wife Virginia. A little later picture. And does anybody recognize this man? I don't.
That's you.
That Lion?
That's Lion? Yeah. The father? Oh, okay. He looks different with his hood up.
Is there a 1 in front of that 309?
Look at that gas, 30 cents a gallon. In this Texaco. Sky Chief. And there's peaks we're getting up into, I'd say, the 60s, right? According to the front end of that car. And now we're really getting up in the later years. By the way, Jan Peak gave me a whole bundle of pictures, and that really helped out. Next is the Salamac. Down at Salamac, at the east end of the lake, across the island, had a gas pump. This is his dance hall. Across the road was his tavern, and that's supposed to be the tavern. There's a little sign just to the right of that car. I don't know, is that a Texaco?
Yeah.
But that's the only thing we could come up with for Salamac. Before we get to the next, my next one would be on the south side of the causeway, White Sweet Shop. Now, my grandfather had in his diaries, one of the places he bought gas was White's. I don't know if it was White's here or maybe when he went into Schenectady, but I was just assuming maybe it's the sweet shop. Okay. Now we're back into Maryville. We're down 159, just past the school on the right. This is Clyde Culling's garage. Clyde built this garage. This is where the firehouse is now. With Esso Gas, he did repairs. They had a tow truck. He was also a sub-dealer for A.L. Parsons and Sons of Central Bridge in Amsterdam. He sold Fords. He stored new Fords in his large building behind his garage until the showing of the new cars. Remember when the cars come out in the fall, you didn't see them until that night? Well, he stored a bunch of new cars back in his garage. After Clyde died in 1948, Ray Weekly ran the business for a few years.
Was that a school bus?
Yeah.
What kind of bus was that, Lenny?
Yeah.
Right there.
It's like a civil defense bus. He took people back and forth to Amsterdam.
Oh.
I've read some,
Joanne drove that too.
you read these old diaries and you start, piecing things together. Well, I wasn't looking for a bus run. I was strictly on gas stations, but I should have been taking other notes. Okay, now we'll go back to Dan McCone's. That's Dan, and a short ways across the road from Clyde Culling's, Dan McCone and his son-in-law Hank Fazone built a garage in the early 50s. He did gas. They had gas. What was the brand? Kelso. I never heard that one before. That's a strange one. Repairs and a big Dodge tow truck. Dan worked second shift at Alco and Hank first shift at GE. When my parents and I went to Maryville every other Sunday, we had to stop to Dan's to get gas. And Carl Adebar would be there with the Fonda race results. And that building is still there. Now that's Dan on the right, George McCone in the center, and Clyde Cullings in the back. Who was the guy in front? Do we remember, Jan? The young fellow? This Punky didn't know who that was. Okay, here's what, this was right across my grandfather's house. I never remember it. I just remember seeing a picture. It was Charlie Fiston's. It was just this side of Kenny McCone's road, going up to Kenny's house. It was right across my grandfather, next to my uncle's house. Charlie had a octagon camp, I'd call it. It was kind of built up on a little knoll. And this was down in front, they tell me. My grandfather's, only way I know that's Charlie's, and that's what it was. According to my grandfather's diary, May 27th, 1927, men finished installing the gas tank at Fiston's. And then there was later in his notes, in 1939, he switched to Gulf gas. And his little cabin and everything is long gone. Pat McCone thinks that pump or that tank may still be in the ground, but we wouldn't want to tell anybody. Again, according to my grandfather's diaries, he would in the 20s and 30s, pump he purchased this. He put down where he purchased, how many gallons, how much. Peak Store, Charlie Fist, and White's. They were the three in the 20s and 30s. Later it was Collings's and Dan McCone's. They were all in Maryville. Every few days he would buy 4 to 6 gallons of gas for his Model T touring car, which held 5 gallons of gas. In 1917, gas was 28 to 30 cents. In 1923, 18 to 24 cents. And for some reason, in 1927, 15 cents a gallon. I don't know why it would. Something was going on with the government. In May 1st, 1929, there was a 2 cents a gallon tax put on gas. In 1944, jumped up to 20 cents, which makes sense, the tax. In 1958, it was 28 cents a gallon, and 65, 30 cents a gallon. They were both at Dan McCone's. Farther out, 159 on the corner of Route 30 and 159 was a small gas station. I've always known it as Green Gas Station. It was owned by the Samatowskis, Stanley and Mary. Looking up Maryville papers, there was a Green family owned a lot of property on that end of town, so Greens might have owned that before Samatowskis. I called Stanley years back to get some information. Well, I called him Stosh, and he said he didn't have anything. So, and Warren Gifford said he ate lunch. They sold gas and had lunch in that. And Warren Gifford said he ate lunch there many times. Now there's no gas in Maryville, not an ounce. Is there? Anybody know?
No.
Which you got to go to Rotterdam or Duanesburg. Much of the Maryville information I say was gathered from my grandfather's diaries from 1917 to 65 and George Lyon Peake's Thumbnail History of Maryville, and remembering the Town of Duanesburg volumes 1 through 4. You turn left on 30, go to Brayman's Corners. Okay, the first station just past the church on the right, on the corner of Route 30, Miller's Corners, no road. There was a gas, call it a gas station, but a gas pump, right, in front of a little convenience store, operated by Adolph Foote. And that is no longer, that's a home now, where his store was. A little farther down the road on Old Route 30, they went through Brayman's Corners, I don't know what year, and the old road used to go towards the Burtonsville and then hook over to present 30. Well, they just took that hook out. We call it Old Brayman's Corner, or Old Route 30. John Ladd and his wife had a mobile station and convenience store and kerosene in the store, and that closed in 1930. And that picture is Ron Hawes. It was an old barn converted into a store, and that was about 10 years ago we took that picture. Follow Route 30 down to Route 20, and just before the Usbridge Bridge on the right, this photo was taken in 1927. Elton Madison had a gas station there. Originally, this was just a gas station and an ice cream store. The garage was added later, and that building still stands. It looks kind of lonely there. No gas or anything, just Smitty owns it. It's someone Smitty owns it. Okay, we go farther up Route 20, top of the hill. The station was built by Wally Easton in 1948. He sold Sunoco gas repairs. I just remember the Sunoco pump. They put a dial on the side. You want 210, you want 220, whatever grade of gas. Don Larsdale purchased the business in 1961. He went to Mobile Gas. And Don's daughter Kelly and her husband Dave Holt took over the business in 1990 with a tow truck and a roll-off. And Dave is still doing business, but repairs only, no gas. A little farther towards Duanesburg, on the right, is Tiffany's. They started out Saucony, like most of these stations, but later on he was went mobile. Minnie ran the store, Jim's wife. They also sold Chrysler cars and farm equipment. Next, it was opened by the Levely family, and now Rick Peterson still selling gas and animal feed. Anybody remember anybody between there? I don't. You come to these blank spots. But anyway, the station is still going, and he's selling gas and animal feed. Just past that, just about 200 feet, 300 feet, the building is still there. It was McDill's Cabin Town. The station and convenience store were out in front, and a bunch of cabins out back. And that is now a home. That was way before my day. Now we go to Duanesburg, at the crossroads of 720. This picture was taken at the mobile station, which is now Stewart's. And on the left, you see this pickup truck coming out? On the left side, Warren Gifford told me about this years back. Otherwise, I never noticed it. This was a picture of his father's. His father operated Tanner Gifford Coal and Feed. It's a 49 International 1-ton truck. And if Warren hadn't mentioned, I would never picked that truck out before. But there's a lot of those pictures around. Now we get into the big town of Duanesburg.
Lenny? Lenny?
Yes.
Previously, you showed that picture of a textile station. That was Kid Wilbur's textile station. That was my first job when I was 14 years old. And
95% of people get it.
Yeah, we're coming up to get in a minute.
what's that?
We're coming up to get in a minute.
Okay.
Just going around the corner. All right, that mobile station was run by Palmer Burnett, selling mobile gas in a around 46 or 47 Ford F600 tow truck. Again, per Warren Gifford. Warren remembers during snowstorms, they would take the truck down to the bottom of Pine Grove Hill, ready to tow vehicles up the hill in the winter. Warren's got a lot of great memory. Next operators were Dick and Doug Crute, then Alton Madison, Wendell Salzberg, and Morg Elliott. Now it is Stewart's. There's a picture over here that John Peters brought in that shows that mobile station with two men outside. If you could look at it later and tell me who was in that picture, I don't know who the crew boys were. I thought it might be them. I didn't recognize them. Where's Warren? Is he here? Sometime you look at that picture, Warren. Tell me who that is, okay?
Yeah.
Next was Gid Wilbur's. Originally a barn from the Case Hotel. Gid converted it into a garage and filling station in the 20s and then added a general store. It is said to have been the oldest Texaco station in New York State. He had gas, repairs, and a tow truck, and he sold most everything in the store. A little story from Volume 2 by Jack Brown. Regular anti-test gas at two islands, kerosene and white gas at pumps along the building, diesel fuel in a driveway between the hub restaurant and the store for tractor trailers. So Gid had everything covered, and aviation fuel at the airport. He sold Texaco Haviland motor oil and cheaper bulk oil for 25 cents a quart. Another story that Bart McDougall told me, Gid had an older Chevy tow truck. He parked under the overhang of the hub. He left the keys in, knowing no one would steal it because of its age, and if anyone wanted to borrow it, they could. One icy morning in the 1950s, Hugh McDougall, when delivering milk, slid off the driveway at Burning Miracles on Van Patten Road. Hugh walked up, borrowed the tow truck, pulled out his milk truck, and then took the tow truck back to Gid's. I don't know whether Gid ever knew it was gone or not. In 1970, Gid retired and sold to Enders and Cooper. Esther Vincent leased the business from them And in 1970, her son Dave took over the lease. In 1978, Dave purchased the business and updated the property. He later changed the name to Countryside Mart, and the building was taken down in 2010. Harry Alexander, Harry Shell. Harry was proud of the fact he was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I guess he said he was the only one in the country with those hours.
Excuse me, Lenny.
Nights were busy at GE with workers, so he claimed.
Back to Gibbs. The cupola is at the gas up in Schoharie now. That hasn't been saved. The
Oh,
cupola at the gas up in Schoharie.
Yeah. From Gibbs.
Oh, Gibbs.
Cupola on top.
Okay. Where is Schoharie?
Joe Merlin did it.
443. The gas.
Oh, the gas. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Harry was open. He felt he did enough business with the GE workers.
Just a minute, Lenny. The night guy at Harry's was named Dewey. He was a little short guy, probably retirement age, but he was very jovial. And in those days yet, they pumped gas for you. It wasn't self-serve, at least not there. And he smoked a pipe and pumped the gas at the same time. But it didn't alarm us then. But looking back at it, it wasn't a really great decision.
And right next, this is off the subject, but the liquor store, that was Mrs. Bopp's, and later Barty McDougal's, right?
Yes, for 3 years. The car there.
That's Harry's Cadillac.
That's right. It was a '56.
Harry always drove a Cadillac.
Four-door hardtop, which means it didn't have a pillar in the middle. Yeah.
What was his license number?
It was.
Who said
It
that?
had power windows.
Somebody had Harry's license number?
HA410.
HA410? Yeah, right. The darndest thing you remember, isn't it? Next is the Case Hotel, which is now the pub and is now apartments. They had fuel tanks out front. And then we'll start down Route 7. Ernie McDuffie built a concrete block building across from Stewart's in the 40s. He operated a gas station and repairs. And another one of Barty McDougal's stories, he soldered a quarter to the end of his counter.
Well, that was Raymond Kennedy.
Oh, that was Raymond. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
See,
Raymond Kennedy, spelled R-A-M-O-N, like Ramon. But they always pronounce it Raymond Kennedy. He took over for McDuffie. I think he became deceased. Mary was his widow. But Raymond Kennedy bought it, and go on with the quarter story.
Sorry, Mark. My mistake in my notes.
Sorry.
But anyway. He sold, Raymond Kennedy, he sold Atlantic Gas. And I don't know if the building's still there. I don't know who's in there, what kind of business, but no gas.
Charlie Peters used to have a body shop there.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of...
They do roofing now.
Pardon me?
They do
Roofing? Oh, okay.
Oh, did you tell him about the quarter on the counter?
I started, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He soldered it to the end of his counter, enticing people to pick it up.
Yeah.
But, pick it up and soldered it.
Yes,
I had the right quarter, Mark, but the wrong person.
Yeah, sorry.
and Wayne said he
I
remembers
was a little
that.
kid, I went in with my dad, and sure enough, I tried to pick it up.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Now we'll go down Route 20, heading east. There's the Duane Inn, which was Pavlik's restaurant, and just recently a liquor store foreclosed.
That's Aunt Hetty's house to the right, which is where Century 21 is now.
And McDougal's General Store is where the barber shop is now. And that was your, what, grandfather, Bart?
No, it was my great-grandfather's brother, Doc McDougal's brother, and his son was probably out there. I don't know. Maybe that's the old man. But Ralph McDougal, that some people probably still remember, he died in '64. So he ran it when I was a little boy. His father, you see, his wife's name was Hetty, and they lived in that place I just referred to. And then I'm sure you'll tell about what happened to that building, right?
That's the present market?
Well, yeah, I see it changed all right after the war, and you mentioned, somebody mentioned this, Steve Shady mentioned it in the Hamlet of Duanesburg presentation a few months ago, that after the war, Chuck Mott and Sherman Mike Shady bought the place, and they raised the roof, I mean literally, and they put a facade on it of brick, and they extended it, I don't know, 15 feet to the east, to the left, and that's where the barber shop is now. Before that, it was the post office at one time, from late 40s to when they moved it to where the post office to where Jonathan's was. Things changed so much. It's the landing now. You could almost hear your echo in the place now. But, so there's apartments upstairs, and Milt Whitbeck lived up there. I'll stop right there because I don't want to get too personal.
That's why I invited Barty tonight, to help. I give him a front row seat if he'd help get me through this program. And it's working. Next, heading down towards the bank, just a short ways. Just before the bank, there was a Leroy Knowles, had a city service gas, and a convenience store.
Hold on just a second, Lenny. I didn't want to interrupt you, except that big building that was right next to the last slide is the core. Yeah, that's the core of what Martin Shady called the Federal Building, which is Jonathan's. That was Chuck Mott brought probably hundreds of loads of fill in and back, because it slopes off naturally, and they pulled that back around 1960 somewhere, and that became what is now the landing. So that was Elsie Borsdorf's place. I don't remember her husband's name. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, thank you, Barty.
Go ahead.
And Leroy Knowles, his building is long gone. Across the road was Kennedy's Luncheonette. They sold gas. That's where Saren's Market is now. I think we've got another picture of.
Yeah, we do.
And that they were getting their meat delivery for lunches. Okay, Bill Crozier is next. He's across the road from Saren's, from Kennedy's Luncheonette, where the insurance office is now. He sold golf gas, repairs, and he also had a tow truck. That was in the 40s, and he had a license to sell Fords.
And he drove one of two school buses, a 37 Ford Woody, and the other bus was about a 46 Ford two-door sedan with the red light in the back window. I suppose he must have had one on the top and the front. And Crozier drove the Ford, and Wendell Salzberg drove the more modern Ford two-door sedan. And when I was a little kid in school, they would announce bus 1, and then a few minutes later bus 2, and then a few minutes later bus 3. Well, it was the same buses. It was just a run number 1, run number 2, run number 3. So that's kind of fun.
We'll go farther down Route 20. Next place on the right would be the Oak. That's the only picture we have. It's an aerial view when it was a restaurant. Howard Oldhouse helped us on this. In 1932, it opened as a filling station by J.M. Greeley. In 1942, he received a license to sell beer in the restaurant and called it the Oaks.
Now, in the back there, you see there's a 3-stall garage, to the left of which is, it doesn't look like it, but it was an apartment. And the apartment stole a little bit of the back part of the leftmost bay. So you couldn't park a car in the left bay, because the back part of it was part of that apartment. And the Mott girls grew up there. Donna and Brenda Mott, and their parents, Mervyn, Bub, and Marion, who frequented the Oaks, by the way. And they were members of the class of 57 and 56. I think Donna was 56, and I know Brenda was 57. She married Minard Ash Jr., and lived on the end of Ash Lane. And in my time, Joe Greeley had sold that to Bill Denty, Bill and Ethel, who ran a very nice restaurant and bar there. And Joe Greeley ran the Nevada Court cabins just east of there west of there on the same side of the road. Back to you.
Marty, you're full of knowledge.
Well, I'm full of stuff.
Okay, farther down 20, across the road, would be Murley's. Julius Murley built a gas station in 1948 to go along with his restaurant and motel. He sold Esso gas and did repairs. And his son Joe took over the building. No gas, just did manufacturing work there. And that building is still upright. Route 7, heading east, 1 mile below Duanesburg. We're over on the other road now. Bill Lesson built a gas station in 1961. Esso gas, repairs, in a tow truck. Well, that's Grandma Lesson. And Bill's son Will is here tonight with us. His father specialized in working on sports cars. And Will now does car restorations in the building. He's fixing the house part is over the garage. He's fixing it all. It looks like new now you go by. Good to see that, Will. Okay, that was Will in the second picture too. I'm sorry, I missed that. The tow truck.
Yeah.
And that's Will. See if look at the picture now. Look at it now. See if you change. Okay, now we're back to Duanesburg on Route 7. We're going up past Weaver Road, up on top of the hill. Furbeck's station. Harold Furbeck, Lou's father. I just started it in 1949. He was selling Esso gas at that time. No, excuse me. That was mobile. Bud Allen took over in 1960 with Esso. These guys, they were switching gas. Must be, where you get the best price from your distributor. In 1964, Bud went to Elixir. And around 1968, Morg Elliott took over with Hess Gas, and he had a little tow truck. After Morg, I have Lou Sprague. Does anybody know of anybody filling in between? That's the only thing I could find for Morg. But these guys, they ran different stations. They had it in their blood. And as we go just past Cole Road, Barty told me there was a small building with a gas pump on Route 7, just past Cole Road on the right. I've been here since 1955, I don't remember.
It was just past the house that's on the corner. I think it was burned in what they call a controlled burn, probably by the Quaker Street Fire Company. I think somebody named Ostrander may have run it. I don't remember it. But now I see you're up to Lonnie Adams. But go ahead.
Yep. Okay, we're up to Lonnie Adams on the corner of East Shore Road, Route 7. It was built in 1947, Gulf Gas and Repairs. Back up.
Yep.
That's his 32 Cadillac tow car. I always heard of tow trucks and tow cars. Well, that's what they did. They bought a Packard or a Cadillac. They put a winch in the back. The house still stands. It's been changed. And is there another picture showing you? Oh, he's behind the main building. You see the roof of a barn? That's where this mechanic worked. He had a pit down in there. And notice he's got his cap on. In those days, they coveralls. They dress nicely, the gas men. And that, I say again, the house is still there on that property. Now go down East Shore Road to Delanson. Okay, right before the creek. You make a right-hand turn just before the railroad, just before the creek. Pizarki's General Store. Notice the gas pump in front. Notice the greens on the right. The creek runs under the store. And the store's down now. In 1964, that was tore down. The building on the right is long gone. But they said when the high waters come over the road, they open the doors on the second section and let the water run through the building.
How's Chick English's right here?
Yeah, Chick English and who's the other?
Jobman?
Who was the guy who was
Jobman?
Willie Just? Was Willie Just in there?
Yeah, Willie Just was before Chick.
Chick, that's what I thought so.
Yeah.
He did his slaughtering out back. It was Willie at the meat market, right?
Yeah. Union leader there. I was a tobacco.
And again, in 1964, when they put the new road, that just kind of destroyed the Lansing. Just opened it right up, took all the nice trees down. Next, this is Barty's familiar territory. Floyd Barton's garage. The building is now the Delanson Post Office. That was Barty's grandfather.
My grandfather built it in 1927, and the house next door, well, they call it a shotgun house because it was only one room wide. And 3 rooms down and 3 rooms up, and the front upstairs overlapped half of the porch because it had originally been an office building for, I think, the coal office. And Grandpa bought it when they didn't need a coal office anymore. And it was when I was a kid. It was also, well, he was the school bus mechanic, and that was the bus garage. Yeah, they had just room in there for bus 1, which was like a short dog, and bus 3 nudged up behind it. You just had room to close that skinny, tall overhead door. And of course, they were both Dodges because he sold Dodges and Plymouths. And he sold Texaco gas, and Grandma used to pump the gas while he was in there working on cars. One time, there was a ladder in there. You can see that on the right?
Yeah.
And that went up to a loft. Well, I was forbidden to climb that ladder when I was a little kid. But of course I waited until no one was watching, and I climbed it. And up there, I was very disappointed. All there was cast off funeral of flower vases, the kinds of things that are disposable. You know, they were like paper mache or something. They probably from Grandpa White or something. They just threw them back there. I thought there might be something really valuable, but there wasn't.
Okay, next Okay, Briggs and Harhall. Down Railroad Avenue, that was the feed mill. And when I was a kid, I remember the gas pump out, but I didn't know whether they sold to the public or not. And we happened to find this picture, and shows they got the gas pump. I'm sure that's Andy Harhall. He was one of the partners. That business stayed open till it was sold to a Harry Temple. What year did sales tax come in? 72 or something, was it? Anyway, when sales tax come in, Harry Temple says, I'm not collecting sales tax. He put up a gate all around the perimeter.
It had to be a little before that, Lenny.
He had 2 railroad cars full of lumber sitting there, but he wasn't going to pay sales tax. And he slept on the desk in there, and from then on, people were helping themselves till it's gone now, nothing left. Could you read that back from there?
Yeah, this was really interesting. We really wanted your business. Dear neighbor, we depend upon you and other motorists in this community for our livelihood. Naturally, we can't afford to give you bad service and risk losing patronage. We know gasoline, that's our business. And that's why we urge you to try a tankful of Blue Sunoco now. Its high-test action snaps cold motors into instant life.
Okay, after we passed, we turned around to start up Quaker Street Hill. At the foot of the hill, Canister Brothers, Angie and Joe, on the right at the foot of the hill. Mobile gas, repairs, and they got their gas. Their son, one of the boys, told me they got their gas from Jim Tiffany. I think if you were a small mobile dealer, Jim would probably, Jim Tiffany up on 20 had the big fuel tanks. He would supply you. They had a Ford pickup with a winch and back. Joe finally went to work for the Town of Duanesburg, and later Angie went to work in wards in Albany in the early 60s. In 1964, the road was changed, and you see the approach. See what the gas pump is now? Yeah. It just raised it up. You still get to the house, but it's a steep bank down there. The barn is still there. Rel Risley lives in the house and owns the barn. He does his own mechanical work.
Lenny, I remember because I lived up on Maple Avenue, I would carry a 5-gallon can, empty can, and go down and pump gas and carry it back and put it in my car so I could drive 200 feet back and forth in my driveway.
I always remember as a kid, behind the gas pump, it was kind of a swampy area. It was always kind of black in color. I never put 2 and 2 together until later years. When you change oil, the oil's black. No place for a garden. Now we'll go back up quick. We call it Quaker Street Hill. We'll start in 1934. Clara and Otto Heisig purchased the store, which had already been running. It went through 3 or 4 owners. He moved it back to the road using a Model T. Now tell me how he did that, I don't know. Putting the store on a foundation with a cellar and putting gas pumps and a kerosene pump in the store. In 1954, Earl and Gwyneth Cranston purchased a store selling Amoco gas. They used to advertise white gas. That was the big thing for your lawnmowers. I guess it was cleaner or what, I don't know, but back in those days it was a selling factor. And he also had the kerosene pump in the store. In 1968, Dennis and Christine Wolf purchased a store selling Texaco, then Citgo, and finally Gulf Gas until they stopped selling gas in 1986. And sadly, that store closed last Friday. It's closed for good. We don't know what's going to happen there. Right at Kitty Corner from the store, corner of Darby Hill Road and Scary Turnpike, where the house burned 3 years ago. Pumps were right. It was started out as Wilbur engaged. There's a calendar over. I just found that this week. Johnny Wolf gave that to me. They found from Wilbur engaged their calendar from the store. Then when Hosier's bought it, Levesque, Q1s, and then Hanneman's. And those pumps were right along the road. And right in front of the store. 2 years ago, when they put the crosswalks in, they had to put the standards and all that stuff. They were drilling down one day, they stopped, and then the guys in the white suits come out. There was a tank down there. They didn't know it was there. Anyway, they found it. Next we'll go up Darby Hill Road, farther, cross over Barton Hill, just as before Gallopville Road on the left. On the right-hand side of the road was Palmer Burnett's. Palmer started down in the Mobile Station years back. And see that? That was the 50s and 60s. Concrete block, building which he had built, and he did gas and repairs. And that building is gone now. Now we'll go back to Quaker Street, up Route 7, 3 miles from Quaker Street, on the corner of Young's Road and Route 7. If you stop just before you turn into Young's Road, there's a little shanty there along the side. That was that store sold. We don't know the name of the owner. They sold Ciccone gas, which the sign from the gas pumps is over here on the table. We have accumulated that through the years. Susan List Biggs remembers going there with her grandmother, Augusta Sears, in her 37 Ford Coupe for gas, bread, and milk in the 40s. And that little building is still there. Well, that's the sign that Susan had the sign in her barn. And I'm sure there's tanks up there, but we won't tell anybody. Now the only gas in the town of Duanesburg is Rick Peterson's, which is Tiffany's up on Road 20. Stewart's on 20 and 30 near Esperance, and Stewart's and Valero in Duanesburg, which is quite a change from the old days. I have a thermometer here I want you to take a look at. We were given that about a month ago. W.L. Wright's Garage, Duanesburg, New York, and it's got an Esperance phone number. Take a look at it. Would anybody know anything about this? Strange thing, he's listed Duanesburg, but it's an Esperance phone number. If you know anything about it, please tell one of us. Any questions on anything? Yes, John.
Yes, how many filling stations were there from the beginning until present day? Do you have a number?
I didn't count the numbers, no. I think there was 7 or 8 in Ragland just to start. 6 or 7 in Duanesburg.
But we can do that count easily enough and get back to John.
Yeah, it's important.
I'm right on it, John.
If you have anything, pictures of things from the old days, shows like this people enjoy. Look, I think, it shows what things used to be. Most of us long before my day, and I'm not a kid anymore. And Barry, I owe you a 6-pack. You went overboard tonight.
Oh, that's all right. I thought of something just now when you were getting ready for your closure, that I had mentioned that the school buses were numbered 1 and 3. Well, there was a bus number 2. That has nothing to do with petroleum, except they make it run, of course. But that was owned by Fred Peters. And bus 2 was a privately owned bus harbored by Fred Peters, and he had a contract with the school district to pick up kids. That's where the missing number 2 came from.
Now, was that a Dodge also?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Does that seem right? First 3 buses were Dodges? They were kept at the Dodge dealer?
Oh, well, it's just a coincidence.
They were put out for bid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anybody got anything else? Yes, Eddie.
You showed that thermometer with an Esperance phone number. If my memory serves me right, there was an operator in Esperance when you made a phone call. The operator connected you to other lines, or am I, did I read that?
You're right.
Yep.
My mother was an operator there.
There's a story goes with it. I heard Doc Walker had a call one night. Somebody was sick in Esperance, and he was half asleep. So what was it? He started out Oh, he forgot what was called, so he called the operator. Hey, what was that just called? That was the old Billy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what year would that have been, Kurt, that there would have been an operator in Esperance that was handling Duanesburg calls?
Oh, she was probably doing it in the late 30s. And Winifred Quick was an operator, then Bessie Dane was also an operator.
Grace East.
Grace Easton. Of course, the equipment was in Grace Easton's house, right on Main Street in Esperance.
Anything else on the floor? Yes, Sue.
I had a friend who lived up on top of the hill on Fellowship Road, Jimmy Spurbeck.
Yep.
Lived there on the top of the hill. When I went to his house and called home, the wall phone was still a crank phone. And you turned the crank, and the Esperance operator picked you up and connected you to my house in Delancey. But when I called him from Delancey, I dialed J8. Was his phone. I can remember that like it was yesterday. His number was J8. You dialed J8, and the Esperance operator picked you up and asked you who you wanted to talk to and connected you to their phone.
Yep.
And
Anyway,
that was mid to late 50s.
well, that thermometer was on Ernie Babcock's house on Main Street. Somebody who bought that through the years, when they sold the house, they took it with them because it's got house paint all over it. So it's probably from the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So if that rings a bell to anybody, let us know where the station was. Anything else?
I believe Doc Walker's phone number was 1.
What was no Bronx?
19.
Right.
Same as the stock.
Nothing else? Okay, Pat will take over now. Thanks, Pat.